Now, what we're going to do next is we're going to create a new thing. And this is the extension of structure. All right. So what is a structure missing? Well, a structure is missing procedures, isn't it? Wouldn't it be cool if you could bind together a structure and then functions that act on and understand what that structure is? That would be really cool. And that, my dear friends, is called a module. Okay, we're going to declare module, and let's call this war game. Okay, and we're going to end declare. And then we will come down here and say module war game. And then we will end module. Okay, so those 4 lines of code, those 2 blocks of code define a single module called war game. And the uppercase name of war game is a Pete-ism. And that is how I personally define all my modules. That way I know if I'm typing an all letter word or see an all uppercase word in my code, I know that's referring to a module all by itself. And that's the module name. And so that's very important because when you access functions in a module or access structures in a module, you have to tell the computer from what module does this structure belong. Okay, so to save this, well, it doesn't seem fitting to be saved in a structure, and we don't want to mix structures and modules. So let's come on over here and let's create our very own module folder. And we will come in here and say, okay, let's create a folder called modules. Okay, so here are our modules. And that should close. And then we can do a save as. And you're in structures. So let's go to modules. And this is called war game. And yet this is also an interface. EBI. Yes, he contains code, but he's still an interface of a thing. He is defining what a game is. He is not the game. Okay, and that to me defines interface. So let's go ahead and add him to the project. So now we have modules, where this is where we're going to put all our modules, and we're going to have a lot of modules. We may have terrain type modules. We may have unit type modules. We're going to have bridges. We're going to have all manner of stuff I can't even think of at the moment, but I know we're going to have a whole bunch of modules. So how do you go about defining this module? All right, well, first we're going to come into the declare. This is the public interface. Let's put that up here. Public interface. And down here is our procedures. This is procedures. Procedure procedure and private. And private procedures. All right, now PR, get my spelling right. Okay, so the first thing we would want to start out a module with in my world is going to be a structure. Define what our war game is. What are the attributes that we have with our war game? Um, and structure. And then what would be some of the automatically you can think of declare. And let's come in here and say declare load. And let's come in here and do a declare save. And of course, there'll be lots of others. But there's a caveat here that you need to be made aware of that a module uh, is sealed. It seals our code. It is unto itself encapsulated. It can see only itself. It cannot see global variables. Nobody can come into this code without going through the declare module public interface and calling one of my functions. This module cannot see globals. It cannot see anything else other than other modules, and then it can only reference their public interface. So in order to load and save, think in terms of games you have played in your life, you're going to need a file name, and then we're going to need an instance of our war game, right? So we're going to say, I'm going to use a generic term, class, and say, give me, you could use foo in the older days. Well, not so older days, we used foo, but we're going to say, give me this generic thing of type war game. Okay. Now, this is referencing specifically our structure war game. I could come over here and say war game, and that's saying use this module. This is the module link here. And then this inside that module, you can use this war game. This is valid. And also this is valid from inside the module. So then down here, save. Well, save's going to pretty much need the same set of data. So let's come on down here and we'll just copy those in. So now that we have our public declares here, oh, you know what else we're going to need? Let's throw in a declare init. Okay, and init would need to know what it is. Give me one of these guys to initialize. And then, well, let's see. We're going to need a dispose. Okay, so now we have 4 functions right off the bat that we have to build. So let's just go ahead and copy these down here and let's turn them into procedures, right? And whoops, hit the wrong key right off the bat, didn't I? Whoops, PROC, and that gets him. So let's go ahead and just copy this one. And we can paste him in there and say, and PROC. and you're gonna be declare and end EROC. And finally, we're gonna come in here. Okay, so we now have the beginnings of a good module. So a module is going to end up, when you create it, he's going to be an object, and all objects should be initialized, and then all objects should be able to be disposed and gotten rid of. And then we have this being a game object. And what do we want to do with games is load them from the hard drive and save them back to the hard drive. So now let's come over here back to our main sheet of stuff, and we have our person structure. And let's compare this to defining a wargame module now. Define wargame, and whoops, let's see, Stalingrad, Lingrad, and forgive me if I misspelled that. It might be two L's. So we're going to define him as our module was all uppercased, and then we're going to define him as our structure. Okay, so we just defined the war game of Stalingrad. Maybe we define Midway. This was the big Battle of Midway. It turned in the Pacific. So this is also going to be a war game, and he's going to be a war game. So our definitional structure, it changed, but it makes sense, doesn't it? So we're going to define our variable Stalingrad of type, and this is our module name. Let's jump back over here. That's our module name in our war game. Well, let's go ahead into war game, and we can have some fun. Let's throw in an ID. Let's pretend that maybe this is going to be saved just the way it is, actually to a database. So we would need an ID, and we're going to need a, let's see, we're going to need a name for our game, won't we? And that should be a string. And maybe we have a, we could have a game map, huh? Let's see how we would do that one. The map would be a big, yeah, we can say game map. And that's going to be an integer. Now, whether you choose to do this as this is really going to be a image, but as far as the database would be concerned, it's just a number. So we're going to put a comment over here that says that this is an image. And we really ought to know what our game map rows and columns are. So, well, at this point, we're defining a whole nother module, aren't we? Because when you think about it, let's go ahead and take that off. Let's leave our game just like this. Because if we start thinking about games, you may have 5 maps that are in a game. Maybe it's a great big campaign game of the Eastern Front where you have to fight the Battle of Kursk, and you have to fight Leningrad and Stalingrad, the Battle of Moscow, Operation Barbarossa with the initial invasion of Germany into Russia. Or maybe it's the Western Front and you're fighting Bastogne and various battles that were fought of World War II. You may have many maps. So what we would really want to do is have a map collection, or maybe a whole nother module that contains all the maps that make up a game. And then we just keep track of where you are. Maybe we put in here current current map ID. Okay, because we don't want to keep names. Names are crazy. So maybe we have current turn. What is the game turn? Current date. Maybe this game keeps track of the date. Um, let's see. I don't know. That's you're probably getting the concept of where I'm going here. So we have all these things that make up our map. Now, let's come back to our main sheet. And if you remembered when we were over here with George, we could type in George. And when I did the slash, we get all the fields that make up George. We get all the attributes or fields that make up the structure of George. Well, what do you think we're going to get when we do that with, say, Stalingrad? Okay, now look at this. Let's see. We get, come on. Oh, I got to get some more room down here, don't I? Let's do that. Okay. So, well, Stalingrad was defined as the structure war game. So we're going to see the exact same thing. We are only seeing the attributes that make up the structure of war game versus the structure of person. Okay? So, where's the big difference, you're asking? Well, if I come down here and type war game, now let's take a look, see at what we get to see. We get to see all of our functions, okay? We have the structure war game. We have dispose and init and load and save. We have all of our functions that we can call. Remember, a procedure inside a module is encapsulated code. He himself cannot see out. You have to call him and supply him with what he needs. So if I was to say init, I could then come in here and say, let's pass him a reference to our variable Stalingrad. And I think that probably is it. So then he can now act on our object, Stalingrad, that we're passing him a reference to. Our variable reference will come over here and it will drop into this code right here where we will initialize our variable. So I'm hoping all of this is starting to congeal in your head. Remember that, well, actually, let's do some of these just to show that it's working from a standpoint of war game, and let's do a load, and there's a fictitious guy there, and let's load in Midway. Okay, so now let's come over to our module and say debug initializing, and let's go ahead and say string of class. Whoops. So we're going to get that great big number in here that's going to be returned. And let's come down here to the load function and say, okay, this is loading loading class, okay, because that's all I can see. We're not going to really pass a file name here, so let's not play with that. But you can see what we're saying here. Let's see, hopefully, oops, we do have a typo. What did I typo? Let's say structure not found. Oh, goodness gracious, we didn't include it, did we? Okay, so X include, and this is modules, and this is war game. .pbi. Okay, so we'll go ahead and hit play again, see if we can get past our enable explicit, which we did. And so now he's happy. And he comes down and says, okay, here's our George Washington that we originally had from the previous just structure example. And now we're down here initializing. This is obviously the variable that we've passed in for the Stalingrad. And then we're loading Midway. Okay. So you can see how we're actually acting with our modules and whatnot. And if I came out here and at the very, very top even, I'm going to come in and say, let's build a global variable named Pete. And let's say hello. So we have this great variable up here. And I'm going to put a $sign on me. And so now he's a string variable. And let's come over here and say, okay, let's come out here and say, where is war game? And I can say debug Pete, right? And if I try to do the same thing here, or if I try to do the same thing down, well, let's do it inside a procedure. What do you think about that? Debug Pete, right? So you may be thinking that, okay, down here, we're dealing at procedures. Let's put it in a procedure. Maybe it'll get seen. And the answer is going to be no bueno. So we got our original one up here at the top, and then nothing else got done. So he doesn't see global variables. Pete is a nothing. So let's see if we can get that. That's kind of curious. I figured he would have kicked back an error saying that it doesn't exist. But what if I come in here, there, and try it? Is that going to still be happy? Sure enough. All right. What if we came inside here and said enable explicit? Probably going to error. Ooh, there he goes. Look at that. I was unaware of that. I'm very curious. So now enable explicit called us out on this. Whoops. He says that doesn't exist. Okay, cool. We'll get rid of that one. Let's see if we hit run again. And then, okay, so this is working for enable explicit inside a declare module that works with both the declare module and the module. So he's now saying that our Pete down here doesn't exist. Even though we've defined that as a global variables can not penetrate the module boundary. That module boundary is it's in steel. It doesn't change. So I hope you've gleaned the important aspects of this, because our next lecture in this is going to be focused really at the modules and getting into databases. So there's a lot of information in this, and if you're scratching your head, I fully understand. It takes a while to absorb some of this. Many people think that learning is linear. It's a straight line. You just keep learning more and more and more. But that's not really the case. You go along trying to figure stuff out and racking your brain and trying to figure stuff out. And then all of a sudden the light bulb kicks on, and then you jump 12 levels of knowledge and you go, wow, that makes sense now. And then you go along that plateau till the next light bulb goes off. So what I recommend you do is sit down and go do this. Go create structures and use structures and get a feel for them. Create a module or two and play with it and see what prints and what doesn't print. You got, you got PureBasic in front of you. Go ahead and use it and start figuring some of these things out. And then we'll get together again shortly and we'll have another big add on to this, because I know this is going to be head splitting after a while. So that's it for this lecture group here. And we'll talk at you again soon. Thanks for your time.